I am out of a ton of my homemade cleaning products, so today I'm going to show you how I make some of my favorites, and we're going to do a huge restock. Welcome back. My name is Erica, and we're going to get right to it. I have a ton of different recipes that I want to share with you today. All of them are homemade, made from scratch. I'll have everything linked down below, or I'll just write out the recipe if I don't have a blog post for it. So you can go ahead and check there if you're interested in any of these recipes. Now, I really briefly just want to talk about how I got started making homemade cleaning products and why. So about 5 to 6 years ago is when I really started to dive into this more natural, less toxic type of lifestyle. At the time, I had really little kids. And so I was really starting to think about the products that I was using in my home and how that might affect them and their growth and development and all of that stuff. I also have asthma, and so I was really identifying the things that were triggering for my asthma, and I found that fragrances, especially really strong scents, would trigger me. So I was working on eliminating those from my home and kind of figuring out how I could make products from scratch that were, better for us and cheaper in the long run. And so I slowly started replacing different products in my home with homemade ones. I've tried a lot of different recipes, still not opposed to trying different ones, just to kind of get what's right for me and our home and the different types of things that I'm cleaning. So like I said, as something would run out, I would replace it with something homemade. Now, over the years, I've kind of gone back and forth with conventional products or homemade products, depending on the different seasons of life. For instance, homemade laundry detergent or laundry soap. I've been making that for years, but there have been times where I'll revert back to like an unscented detergent from the grocery store, and it is what it is. And sometimes we can't make the time to make some of these things, even though I will say most of them, if not all of them, take like no time at all. It's just kind of that mental thing. It's like one more thing on the list that you have to make. So I think that's why having this kind of day where you just do them all at once and then you're stocked for a while is really great. But that's kind of the reason behind it. Now, I'm going to say this. I am not like the most crunchy person ever, okay? I still have Clorox wipes under my sink, and I do use different products in my home that aren't homemade. I'm not perfect. Some products are just kind of like tried and true. Now, that's not to say that I'm not working towards totally eliminating all of those. Clorox wipes, I don't know if I can totally get rid of them. It's not like I'm wiping my surfaces down constantly, but like, if chicken juice or something is on the counter, I kind of want to clean it up with something like that, right? I don't know. Maybe I don't need to, but it's like a conscious thing in my head. So anyway, if you're kind of interested in maybe starting down the road of making some natural products and want to slowly make the switch, here are some recipes that I love and that I've been using for a while. So I'm excited to share them with you. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start making some of these cleaning products. So this is a recipe for a powder laundry detergent. Now, I know that detergent is a really hard thing for people to switch, mainly because you're kind of attached to the different scents that you use, especially if you use, things like Tide, it has a unique smell, and that contributes to how you smell. So laundry detergent is really hard for people to switch up, and I totally understand. Now, natural detergent works great in my opinion, especially this powder. It helps to soften your laundry as well. So for this recipe, you're gonna need baking soda, borax, washing soda, and then a half bar of a laundry soap. So full disclaimer, this is actually a laundry soap, not a laundry detergent, although you'll hear the two terms usually used interchangeably. So a laundry detergent is typically made with more synthetic materials and oil, which helps to carry the scent that they put in there. Whereas a laundry soap is made using more natural ingredients, doesn't really contain a lot of oil, so better for you in my opinion. I haven't used powdered detergent a lot in my adult life except for when I make it. And really when I make this powder detergent. It's when I run out of my liquid and I'm too lazy to go through that process. Not that it's hard, it's just a little bit more time consuming. So this is kind of like an in-between buffer, but it still works great. I think it works just as good as the liquid. So let's go ahead and get into it. Really quickly though, before I forget, borax is a controversial ingredient. So do your own research if you want to use borax or not. I do have this recipe linked down below and I talk a little bit about borax. So you can make your decision on that. So you can double, triple, however many times you want. You can make this in giant quantities. I'm just gonna do the basic recipe. I actually made some of this a while back just to test it and make sure that I liked it. So I'm gonna add that to this container in a little bit. But for the basic recipe, we're gonna do 2 cups of baking soda. We're gonna do 1 cup of washing soda. This is a 1/2 cup measure. I'm gonna do 2. And if we're not exact on this recipe, that's okay. Clearly I've made a mess again, right? Okay, so we've got our powders in there. Now we're gonna do our laundry bar soap. This is Fel's Napta. I think that's how you say it. It does have a scent. You can also get Zote bars. We're actually gonna use a Zote bar for our liquid. You could also use Castile soap if you want something unscented, or then add in your essential oils. Totally your call. I prefer to use a zester when I'm doing this, but I prefer to use this because it gets a much finer grate, and therefore, in my opinion, it melts into the water better or dissolves better in the water. I've made this many times before with a bigger grate, and I just feel like it's not as effective. We wash our clothes mostly on cold or cool water. And so the thicker the pieces of soap are, the worse that it dissolves. So if you wash all your stuff on hot or warm water, then go ahead and do bigger grates if you really want to. But if you're like me, I highly suggest using a smaller grate. It basically makes it the same size or a similar size as all the powders and just mixes in a lot better. Okay, now that my arm is about ready to fall off and I'm a little sweaty, we are gonna go ahead and mix this all together. So we're just gonna get everything fully incorporated, chilling out with each other. I'm actually going to add in the other batch that I made a while back. And that's it. To use this, you just need 1 to 2 tablespoons into a top loading washer. If you have an HEU washer, you can start with about 1/2 tablespoon and work your way up to 1, depends on your needs. I highly recommend, especially if you have a top loading washer, to put the detergent or the soap in first. Start the water, let it dissolve just a little bit, and then add in your clothes and your laundry. I find that helps just to make sure everything is nice and cohesive, and yeah, it works great. This recipe is for a laundry scent booster and laundry softener. It's great to get the funk out of your clothes. I have noticed that using a homemade laundry detergent can sometimes leave certain clothing items smelling a little danky. So this really helps to remove some of that odor if you have it or if you run into that issue, but it also softens. So I like to use this with liquid detergent as opposed to the powder detergent. You can use it however you want to, but you just have to add a couple tablespoons to about 1/4 cup to your loads of laundry, and it works great. So we are going to do, I'm gonna triple this batch. I have this recipe on my website. I'll link it down below, but I'm gonna triple it today. So that means that we're gonna do 3 cups of baking soda. If you're gonna get into making these types of recipes, I highly recommend buying the giant bag of baking soda because I use it a lot, obviously for cooking, but especially for these types of recipes. And we're going to use Epsom salt. This Epsom salt is lavender scented. You can do unscented. You can do whatever scent you want. This is what I found. I couldn't find the unscented, which is totally fine. So we're going to use about a cup of the Epsom salt. Just try not to make a mess here. We're going to make a mess. Now, if you're using scented Epsom salt, you don't need to add any more scent unless you want to. If you were to do a scent, which I'm going to do today, I'm going to do some orange. You'll probably need about 45 drops or so of the essential oil. If you are doing unscented, but you want to add in your essential oils, then you're going to need about 90 drops for this tripled recipe. Otherwise, if you're just doing a smaller batch, you can go ahead and check out the recipe. I have it linked down below, and it'll say how much you need. So I'm going to add in 45 drops. Okay, and then we're just going to mix it all together. Get out any clumps. I love the smell of citrus with lavender. I'm not a huge fan of lavender on its own, but I do like it with citrus. This recipe is for a liquid laundry detergent or laundry soap that is going to last you forever. It's going to last you at least a year, and we're actually going to make it in a 5-gallon bucket. So what you're going to need is washing soda, borax, and a soap, a laundry soap bar. I'm going to use Zote. I've never used Zote, but I'm going to give it a go. Otherwise, Fel's Naphtha. You can also use Castile soap. Those are just the only 3 ingredients. And then you'll also need water. I like to use distilled water if I can, otherwise filtered water that's been boiled, and you can also use some essential oils if you would like. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to grate this soap bar. We only need half of this bar for this recipe. Oh, I'm not sure if I like the smell of that, so I think we're definitely going to add in some essential oils. I made this with the Fel's Naphtha, however you say it. I like that scent a lot better. I'm gonna mix this, grate this in here. I am gonna do bigger grates on this time. Maybe we'll do that too. Get a combination. This is shredding really fast. Oh, I don't love how the texture feels. Okay, we're going to set that aside. I'm going to wash my hands because this feels gross. Next up, we are going to measure 1 cup of washing soda and 1 cup of borax and mix them together in a bowl. This is a 1/2 cup measure, so I'm going to do obviously 2 for each thing. Making a mess as usual. For the next step, we're gonna need a 5-gallon bucket. Now this is, I got this at Azure Standard, and then I have a Gamma lid. I highly recommend these because the lids that come on the ones from like Home Depot are really hard to get on and off. These are a little bit of an investment, but I highly recommend them. This one I've used for laundry soap for a while, completely out. So we're gonna mix the rest of the ingredients in this bucket itself. So first I'm gonna add in all this soap. Best I can get that out. And I've had some water going on the stove. This is distilled water that I'm heating up. I'm gonna add about half, it'll be about a half gallon. It's hot water, it's not boiling. Add that in and get it dissolved. So I'm just gonna mix it up until it's completely dissolved in the water. Very sudsy, obviously. You can still see there's a lot of flakes in there. We're just gonna keep stirring. So at this point, I think we're pretty good. Cut through all the suds. I don't see any more flakes, which is awesome. So then I'm gonna add in the rest of that gallon of water. And then I'm gonna quickly add in our washing soda and borax mixture and stir it up. And this should start to thicken as you stir it and start to gel up. Can you see that it's getting a little bit harder for me to stir? Wish it wasn't so sudsy. Like I said, I've never used the Zote soap before, but it's what you expect, I guess, when you're stirring soap. All right, I think we're mixed up quite a bit. Good enough. So I'm just gonna let this hang out and cool down a bit. All right, it's been a little bit. This is thickened. So I'm gonna fill the rest of this up with some hot water and some room temperature water, and we'll go from there. This water is kind of basically boiling. Just waiting for more water to filter, but I'm just gonna give this a stir. I'll fill it up to about here, and then we'll just let it sit and come to room temperature, and it should be ready to use. All right, I'm still waiting for more water to filter, so I'm gonna fill it up a little bit more, but everything has cooled down. So now I can add in the final ingredient, and that is gonna be this essential oil. Again, this is totally optional, but I'm not a lover of this Zote soap. So I'm just gonna add the rest of this bottle. There's about that much left. So I'm just gonna send it. I might actually put some lemon in there too, hold on. I'm not really gonna count, I'm just gonna put in a decent amount. Obviously this is a big amount of liquid, so you're gonna need a lot more essential oil. The orange, again, it was like a third of the bottle. I don't know how many drops it is. And one of these this tiny little 10 milliliter, I Googled it, there's about 750 drops. So that orange was probably about, I don't know, 200. I don't really know. But you're gonna need a decent amount. You can always add more if you feel like you need to. It's probably good enough for now. I'm gonna do one more stir. You can see now it's more like, it's watered down, definitely compared to a normal laundry detergent. And as it cools, it's probably gonna thicken a little bit. I think that's stirred enough. And then what I'm gonna do is transfer it to a half-gallon mason jar, just so it'll be a little bit easier to use. So I'm gonna go ahead and get that quick. Cannot find a bigger measuring cup right now. This is gonna take a little bit of time, but I'm just gonna add it into my half gallon here. And I got these at Walmart. It's gonna be a lot easier to pour. And whenever I need to use it, just go like that. This next recipe is a floor cleaning concentrate. So if you are someone who uses a mop and bucket, you can use about 1/2 cup of the solution in your bucket, fill the rest of it with hot water, and you've got a mopping solution. This also works really great in spray mops where you're able to use your own cleaning solution. You can just put a little bit of that into that canister, fill the rest with water, and you have a spray mop solution. So what you're gonna need is some vinegar. Now this is vinegar that I've made using my lemon tree leaves, so it has a little bit of a lemon scent. I'm gonna show you how to make this a little bit later in the video. You could just use distilled white vinegar if you don't have this. You'll need some isopropyl alcohol, some dish soap, and your favorite essential oils. So for this recipe, we are going to do 4 cups of vinegar. So I'm going to use up as much of this as I can. Then we're going to do 4 cups of isopropyl alcohol. I'm going to do 1/2 cup of dish soap. Dish soap is an area where clearly I don't use the natural stuff. But if you have a recipe that you like, I would love to try it out. And then we're gonna use, this is a bigger bottle of essential oils. This is a fluid ounce. I'm gonna use about 1/2 of this orange essential oil bottle. I'm just gonna take the top off. I'm just gonna eyeball it. And then just gonna put the lid on tightly. Give it a little shake. And that's it. This recipe is a scented vinegar. So we just made that mopping solution. And so I want to restock on these. Now, you can make scented vinegar with all kinds of different aromatics, right? So these, like I said, are leaves from my lemon tree. They're very fragrant. They smell amazing. I've also made it with fresh pine needles. You can do it with any kind of citrus peel, oranges, lemons, grapefruit, limes, whatever you want. You could experiment if you wanted to do any herbs, different things like that, cinnamon sticks. Really, the sky's the limit. The key is that you have to let it sit. So you're not gonna get that instant gratification. These do have to sit for a while. I just make up the solution initially. So I made these, man, I think this has been about a year and I've been reusing these leaves ever since. So what you do, and I'm going to demonstrate that in a second, but you put your aromatics in, whatever you're using, into a bottle. I recommend using a glass bottle. That way, you know, the vinegar doesn't eat away at the plastic. So highly recommend using any kind of glass container. These are all reused. Somebody gave these to me actually. They're tea bottles and they actually work amazing because they've got these little caps on them. So whatever container you want, highly recommend glass. And then you just pour distilled white vinegar over and let it sit. I would recommend like a month or 2, and then it should be ready. And you can just keep reusing them. So this is really great. And like I said, you can use this in so many different things. I'm gonna demonstrate a couple of ways that I use it in the floor cleaner, as well as disinfecting spray that we're gonna make here soon. So lots of great uses, and they're super, super easy to make. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to retire these leaves. I think I'm just going to throw them outside. And then we're going to start fresh with some with some orange peels. All right, so I'm just going to use this bag. This might be hard to get these out. Like I said, I've been using these for at least a year. Probably could use them longer, but I'm kind of wanting some orange scented vinegar. So great use out of these. These were all from a pruning that I did. I think it's been at least a year and a half at this point. I pruned my lemon tree and had all these leaves and I used them. So that's awesome. And they're going to return outside back to the earth, if you will. I'm just gonna put it in this glass for now, so it's big enough. Okay. All right, so we've got our fresh jars. I'm not even gonna wash them. All right, so the first thing I'm gonna do is peel up my oranges. Don't worry, I washed my hands. I'll just peel up a bunch for this week for my family. So yeah, let's start with that many. One tip that I have is you're not going to be ready to make vinegar like all the time or anytime that you have citrus. So I recommend that anytime you peel any of your citrus, just to go ahead and put them in a plastic freezer bag and freeze them. That way, whenever you're ready to make vinegar, you will have a supply and you're not just, buying oranges like I did to make this. My family's gonna eat these, it's gonna be totally fine, but you can also buy them. You do what you want. But that is helpful, if you've got peels, go ahead and freeze them and then they'll be ready whenever you want to make this scented vinegar. All right, we've got some snack prep done. Oh, whoops. Got some snack prep done. Now we're just gonna stuff the jars with our peels. Fit as many in there as you can. This recipe is a dual recipe. So it is my DIY grout cleaner. I have this on my recipe. It's a pretty popular one. It works great on grout, but I had the thought that it would work really well to clean the toilet, like the toilet bowl. So I have not tried it in the toilet, but like I said, it works great for grout. So I want to give it a try and see if that will replace the Clorox, whatever I use in the toilet that I've used for years and years. So this is an example of how I kind of start to replace things. So we're gonna try this for that. And I'm gonna put it in this little squirty bottle. So for this recipe, you need baking soda, dish soap, and peroxide. So I'm actually gonna double the recipe that's on my website, and I'm gonna mix it in this bowl first. So we're gonna do a cup of baking soda, and then a half cup of hydrogen peroxide. And we're gonna do 2 tablespoons of dish soap. I'm just gonna eyeball this. It's good enough. Just gonna mix it all together with this spoon. This is like a thick, not quite a thick paste, but it is a little thicker, almost like shaving cream consistency. This might be a total disaster. Don't put this one in a bottle. This recipe is a room spray, linen spray. This replaces items like Febreze and different aerosol sprays. This is one of my favorite recipes. It smells amazing. It really does freshen up the space, and it's super easy to make. So you're gonna need some water. Now this is water that is filtered and that I boiled. You could also use distilled water. You're gonna need a amber glass spray bottle. You could do plastic, whatever you want. Unflavored vodka. You could also use isopropyl alcohol. I would advise that you use vodka because it doesn't really have a scent, whereas the alcohol does, and it's a little harder to mask with the essential oils. So I recommend vodka. And then you're gonna need essential oils of your choice. I'm gonna do lemon and lavender. So this recipe is really simple. We're gonna take our spray bottle, and we're first going to measure in 1/3 of a cup of unflavored vodka. And still half of it. Then I'm gonna do the combination of lemon and lavender. I'm gonna do about 30 drops in total. I'm just gonna top it off with water. Give it a bit of a shake, and that's it. This recipe is for a homemade disinfecting cleaner. So we are going to use some distilled white vinegar, water, isopropyl alcohol, and some essential oil. So we need 1.5 cups of distilled white vinegar. This is that lemon tree leaf vinegar that we reserved from earlier. So we're just going to use the rest of that. It's about a cup. And a half. Need 1 1/4 cup of water. Okay, I just realized that this recipe is for put in a quart-sized mason jar. It's a little sudsy because the one of the measuring cups had a little soap in it. That's okay. All right, I guess we're gonna make it in this. And then we need a 1/4 cup of the isopropyl alcohol. And we're gonna do about 30 drops of your favorite essential oil. I am using orange again. Okay. And I'll just add a lid to this and shake it up. And then we're gonna add it back into this bottle. Oh, totally forgot that this recipe called for that. That's okay. We'll just fill up our bottle and we'll have a little extra for later. There you go. This will replace any counter cleaner that you're using. The alcohol is what gives it the disinfecting properties, and we're good to go. enjoyed this video. I hope you give some of these recipes a try. Hopefully you found it interesting and useful. As I said at the beginning of the video, everything will either be linked down in the description or I'll type out the instructions for each recipe. It feels really good to have everything restocked. This is the first time I think I've done this big of a restock. So I'm set for a long time, which is awesome. It's something I don't have to think about now. So super exciting. But thanks so much for being here. I really greatly appreciate you. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments. Or if you have, different recipes that you really enjoy making for cleaning, we'd love to hear from you too. So go ahead and leave them down below. But anyway, thanks so much again, and I'll see you next time.